Thank you all. Next is Don Benny from Hamilton, and then Rob will be after him.
Okay, since budget issues are the most common causes for government to lose confidence in the House, should your party not win enough seats to form a majority government on May 2nd, what aspects of your platform that relate to budget would you be willing to compromise on, or which aspects of the platforms of the other parties would you be willing to consider adopting?
Can you tell we have teachers in the room? Who wants to start with that one? Peggy? You laughed the most.
Well, as a negotiator, I tend to reach out right away to a question like that. We've been really clear that whatever the makeup of the House of Commons after the election, we will work with other parties to try to achieve as much of our platform goals as possible. I mean, we don't want to wait until we have no debt, for example, before we try to take seniors out of poverty. We don't want to wait before we invest in education. We don't want to wait before we invest in transit. So we have a number of priorities that we've laid out. We don't want to wait to try to fix Ottawa and build a more cooperative approach where parties do work together. So after the election, I mean, we will try to reach out with whatever configuration exists and try to advance as much as our platform as we can. That is always a process of negotiation in whatever form that takes. And our leader, Jack Layton, has been very clear that we're open to doing that.
Thank you. And I'll just randomly pick Rick to go next.
This is totally not like the House of Commons. Everything is done according to, no.
I'm going to loosen it up tonight.
Yeah, that's great. You know, it's an interesting question from this perspective. I've had a little over 5 years of experience on the Hill and learning what it is to be a member of Parliament and the process that we go through. And you know, I know that there is all of this talk about how parties within the House don't get along and how difficult minority governments are. And I'm not here today to say that it is easy. But what I have lived and breathed for the last 5 years, the parts that I remember the most are the times when we actually have worked together. And there are some extremely good examples of that. Refugee reform legislation in this country, probably the second largest, next to the budget bill, the second largest piece of legislation that we as a government passed, was done so unanimously in the House of Commons. It barely got through second reading, went to committee, we studied it at committee, and before you know it, we had all put pieces into the puzzle that made it work better for us. And as parliamentary secretary, it's quite something to walk to the middle of the House of Commons, and the three critics from the three parties met me there, and we shook hands, and the bill passed unanimously. I do think in this Canadian democracy that we have, there is evidence, clear evidence, that we can work together. I know there's a party process. I know we move through an election. We all have ideas and beliefs of what's right. But I think that there's a way, from a budgetary perspective, regardless of how the next government or who wins and what those seats look like, we can work together. We will, and believe it or not, we'll move forward on behalf of Canadians.
Thank you. Rebecca, please.
Absolutely.
I'll be strict on applause. We're down to the... yeah.
I always say I don't have any children of my own, but I babysit my friends' children. And I'm amazed when I talk to people that sometimes we expect more from 5-year-olds in a sandbox than we do in Parliament. And it is absolutely fabulous when when Parliament used to work together. But it wasn't that long ago, because I remember it, and I was a political nerd since I was 6, that they used to work together, that everybody had a piece of legislation, every piece of legislation. You couldn't pull just one out of the hat and say, that was the one we worked together on. We need to work together all the time. We pass less legislation now than ever before, and it's because we've lost that cooperative effort. We're Greens. We love working together. We don't care if our ideas get our ownership stamp, the green stamp on there. We want to work together. No MP will ever be elected, very rarely, by 100%. So the people they're working together in Parliament with represent the views that are in their community. So if they want to listen to and prove that they're going to listen to their community, they've got to listen to each other in the House of Commons, and that's what our common ground approach is about. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry, I feel like such a stickler. And Bob, please.
I think one of the things that I would like to see us do is to say, okay, the budget is confidence, and once the budget is passed, nothing else should be confidence. We should all understand that any other kind of bill can be changed, and if it can't be changed to everybody's satisfaction, it gets defeated, and then we go on to something else. You move ahead. seems to me that's if we have a minority parliament, that would be a very effective way to let it be. You know, what will happen is the party that forms the most, gets the most seats will form the government, and will come to the House and present its proposals, and you know that's when the discussion will start as to, well, you know, what are people prepared to give way on, what are people prepared to talk about. Given that there's such a strong consensus around the need for a balanced budget as we go forward, that there's such a strong consensus on the need for restraint in some areas at the same time as we invest in others, it should be possible to find a compromise. I mean, you know, there are differences between the parties, but they're like this. They're not like that. And I think it's important for us to sort of take advantage of that when the time comes. I'm not going to say now what I think is wonderful about the other platforms, because that's sort of not how I do things. But I look forward to having those discussions, and I think there are, frankly, good ideas in all the platforms, and I think that's something we need to recognize from time to time.
Thank you.